Hello and welcome to our February editorial review. Today we're going to be discussing issues around key worker status, looking at what roles within the sector should be better protected from coronavirus risk, as well as exploring the new practices and breakthrough innovations that could mitigate risks further. So, back in March 2020, the government published its initial iteration of the critical key workers list so that schools and parents could understand who was eligible for childcare provision. Cleaning operatives were notably absent from this list, and the British Cleaning Council immediately responded to the omission by appealing that cleaning staff must be considered as critical or key workers for the crucial role they play in the fight against COVID-19. It's clearly a view that many of our readers support, as our article on this matter was shared almost 500 times. It was also revealed through the BCC's annual report that there are currently around 1.6 million workers in the cleaning industry, making up around 5% of the UK workforce, which further reinforces their message to protect the industry. Following this, the extraordinary role of cleaners was also praised in Parliament. It was felt that these comments reinforced the BCC's campaign for key worker status. Since then, we've documented the BCC's campaign through its various stages, with continued support within the industry, which has also been echoed by the public. Most recently, we've seen widespread support for cleaning and security staff to be placed into priority vaccine groups. Ella, you've been in close contact with the BCC and are involved with its latest initiative in forming an all-party parliamentary group. Bring us up to speed on the full story.
Thank you, Daisy. As Daisy has explained, what the British Cleaning Council have been calling for is this essential key worker status for cleaning and hygiene operatives. So let's take a look at why this is something that they're calling for and what actually is a key worker. So when you think of a key worker, for most of us, what usually springs to mind are frontline healthcare workers, people working in hospitals, people working in essential food production and supermarkets, also teachers and carers. It also includes professions such as journalists who are providing public service broadcasting, people working in banks, and also those working in the justice system. But what bodies like the BCC feel is that cleaners are being unfairly left out of this list, given that it's their job to provide and maintain a clean, sanitised and safe environment for these other key workers to perform their jobs in. They also clean our supermarkets, our hospitals and other places to keep us all safe. The cleaning industry, as Daisy mentioned, it does represent nearly 5% of the UK workforce, which is fairly significant. And it has been argued that if we don't identify cleaners as key workers, then hygiene in the UK will drop, with the effect that the virus may flourish, and some may already say that it's already too late for this. So what protection does being a key worker actually bring you? So firstly, children of critical workers can attend school or college still. Interestingly, public sector key workers can apply for housing support too. On public transport, the Metropolitan Police and the British Transport Police are working really hard to ensure that those who are travelling are essential workers only. So obviously being a key worker will help this. And of course, healthcare frontline workers are higher on the COVID-19 vaccination list, as we know. As ever, there is a disparity here with those who work directly for the NHS in healthcare settings and those who are contracted by an NHS trust. And this isn't something new to come out of the pandemic. We actually reported in May last year that MedArrest, that's the healthcare division of the Compass Group, announced that they would pay all of its healthcare frontline workers who work in NHS trusts the equivalent rate of pay. This means that employees saw an average of 5% increase in their pay, bringing them in line with their NHS colleagues doing similar jobs. It is worth remembering that some NHS trusts do choose to match salaries for its outsourced services when awarding contracts, but it's certainly not compulsory. So might we see additional disparity here with vaccinations? It remains to be seen. But the cleaning sector isn't the only area of facilities management that feels its workforce should be protected by key worker status. The security industry has also called for this recognition. It's worth noting here that some security personnel are counted as key workers, including those who work in national security and those who maintain our borders. But for the purposes of this, we're predominantly talking about security guards working in our public buildings, in hospitals, supermarkets, etc. Part of the reason why this sector has been so vehemently calling for key worker status is that it remains a sad fact that there is a really high death rate from COVID in the security sector. The Office for National Statistics reports that men working in so-called low-skill jobs, such as security guards, are at more of a risk, with 93.4 deaths per 100,000 males. These are the latest figures, and they have been reported as being high throughout the pandemic. So, what's being done? Well, in terms of the susceptibility of security guards, the reasons for this are being looked into. A report commissioned by Corp Security revealed 7 key issues that may contribute to security officers having one of the highest COVID-19 death rates. This includes age, working location, ethnicity, and working in close proximity to others. The intention of this research is to provide a better understanding why security officers are so badly affected by the virus. And so it can be shared with the wider security sector, so we can all work together to stop more security officers dying as a result of this virus. For cleaners, as Daisy mentioned earlier, we recently reported the inauguration of an all-party parliamentary group for the cleaning and hygiene sector. This is sponsored by the British Cleaning Council, and a total of 53 MPs and 3 members of the House of Lords have joined the group. The group's function is to represent the industry within Parliament and act as their voice, and they have promised to fight for key worker status for cleaners. Additionally, they want to campaign for the creation of a recognised and universal training accreditation for the cleaning and hygiene industry. And they're also going to promote the real living wage as well. So this is a really positive step for the industry.
Thank you, Ella. It was, as you said earlier, really great to see that Compass Group brought their pay for workers in line with the NHS standard for the same role. And this illustrates that private companies can be encouraged to bring their employees in line with public sector wages across the board. Matching outsourced pay is important, but if the national standard does not reflect the value of the work, equal pay is not the issue. This leads on to a priority theme communicated through social media since the pandemic began, that people want to see real improvements to the wages of key workers in the public sector. We have seen a consistent backlash, for example, towards the clap for the NHS concept championed by the government, with many people suggesting that claps just don't pay the bills. This topic has resurfaced due to the unfortunate passing of Captain Sir Tom Moore, who raised £32 million for the NHS during the first national lockdown. The issue of what work is considered essential appears simple. During lockdown, non-essential services that cannot operate from home are shut down with employees on furlough, and those that can work from home should, and then essential services obviously stay open. But the latter bracket is not, however, the final say in defining who receives the key worker benefits, as we've addressed already. And herein lies the controversy, because essentially the work is not limited to the public sector. Without inclusion, private workers that do not come under the description are left with just company policy. And as we have seen with the employee anecdotes from the DVLA in Wales, for example, this can sometimes have dangerous consequences. Considering the nature of the pandemic, cleaners, as we've addressed, are a vital ingredient. To achieve anything safely and following the guidance, it is required to sanitize the scene of any activity afterwards and ideally beforehand for extra caution. In general, it seems that outside of legislation, unions and individuals certainly consider them key.
We spoke to some FM service providers to find out how they feel about these issues and what they're doing to keep their cleaning staff safe.
Hi, I'm Dominic Panaya, CEO and co-founder at Cleanology. It's been really interesting this week to see the formation finally of the all-party parliamentary group for cleaning and hygiene. I think that it's long overdue for a start. And it's been interesting that 53 MPs and 3 members of the House of Lords actually joined this group, making it one of the biggest in Westminster. And it'll be really, really interesting to see what the group can achieve. And I think it's almost a reaction to the lack of, kind of recognition, really, official recognition and support that has been coming from government and governments over many, many years. So I think it's a great start. The group have a lot of work to do. One of the first things needs to be the recognition of key worker status for cleaning operatives. I know that we have, in our own internal way, recognised that and have given our staff, letters that they can carry around so they can continue to do their work. Because after all, if they hadn't, we'd be in a complete mess. I mean, there are reported COVID cases and suspected cases, and all of those situations needed to be dealt with by the cleaning industry to get those areas back up and running, whether it was trains or offices or or retail stores. So I know that we've been involved, and many other companies across the industry have been involved in that important work. And there hasn't really been that official recognition, which has really been a shame to have that lack of leadership from the government in this particular area. There have been a lot of areas the government have supported. The furlough scheme has been an absolute lifeline, and the government, have done a really fantastic job of that and continuing it. But yes, the key worker status hopefully will come. There are a number of other areas that the government, obviously, in this group need to focus on. Apprenticeships and accessing that scheme, because we pay in a lot of money to that scheme as an industry. And then, of course, there's what happens, after June, from July this year, in a post-Brexit world, when the government talks about highly skilled, people coming to the country. What happens to all those, so-called unskilled jobs that still need to be done? And there hasn't been that much thought given to that yet. So there are a number of areas that the group will need to focus on over the next few months. Going back to COVID, in terms of keeping our staff safe, I think it's very important that employers and the industry continue to support the workforce on the front line. There's a very high infection rate with workers such as cleaning operatives, security guards. So for many, many months still, we'll be making sure that the correct PPE and precautions are all taken, and that's something that we'll be doing as a company, and I'm sure the industry will be doing as well to support their workforce. And it's been really incredible to see actually the industry coming together more so than anything we've seen before, in terms of mutually supporting each other through this period and sharing information and resources. So that's been a really positive thing to see. In terms of the vaccine itself, I mean, I think that there was questions around, could it be done privately? I mean, personally, I don't think it should be done privately. It's a public health matter. It may come further down the line that we start seeing it, available privately. I mean, obviously, we still to see how COVID works out over the next few months and years, whether it becomes a seasonal thing. But there are things like vaccine passports that have been mooted, and I think things like that, they are controversial, but probably they're the right thing on balance, because there'll be certain areas where you'd want to access, whether it's an aeroplane or something else, and you need to prove you've had the vaccine. So it is one way out of the situation, and it is a way forward. Not everyone will agree to it, but we're certainly not going to mandate that every employee has to have the vaccine. I think that has serious ethical, questions around it. I know some companies have said that that's their policy, but that's not something that we would support. I think most people will want to have it and do the right thing, probably for themselves and their families and wider society. So I think we have to apply a bit of a common sense approach, and I think we can see the results already of the vaccine rollouts and how positive that's been for the numbers going down. And it seems that we are finally on the route out, which is great. And as an industry, we've been absolutely on the front of this, in a way that we never ever thought we would be, and we're supporting and helping the country get out of this situation and move forward, which is a really positive thing to see. And we've got a long way to go, but I'm sure we're going to get there, and the end of 2021 will be a much better place than where we started.
Thankfully, there's been a breakthrough in testing recently, with councils in some areas now offering lateral flow testing for asymptomatic people and encouraging cleaners to actively participate. Warrington now has 2 sites for those with no symptoms of coronavirus who cannot work from home. Similarly, Ealing Council is recommending testing for anyone working away from their homes, even if they are not displaying symptoms, with cleaners notably the first on the list. This could prove to be a really positive step, but let's remember that not everyone can easily access these sites, with transport limitations and travel cost concerns potentially causing a barrier. And it often relies on these employees going in their spare time when they may already be working long hours and potentially also struggling with childcare provisions. It remains to be seen if employers will allow paid time for testing appointments or incentivise testing in some other way. Worryingly, we've heard rumours that some cleaning operatives have been forced to work despite having symptoms or even testing positive for fear of losing their jobs. It's important that businesses are reassuring their staff that they won't be penalised for missing work due to isolating. Of course, that's also where workers' rights, fair pay and benefits come into play.
It's obviously not just those responsible for hygiene, however, that are working in and around hotspots for the virus. Cooks, porters, security and some care staff, as Ella mentioned, are also not eligible for the support and bereavement scheme granted to key workers in some cases. Back in May 2020, when the scheme was first announced, many workers spoke out against the non-inclusion. Since then, as Ella mentioned, the BCC have campaigned tirelessly for cleaners to be considered. With the vaccine rollout now fully underway, there has been much controversy over the priority listing for this. Cleaners in schools have been frequently highlighted due to their importance in keeping education facilities functioning to enable other key workers to carry out their jobs. With the circumstances putting them at increased risk, some are experiencing heightened anxiety and others sharing tragic news of relatives in these positions who have lost their lives to COVID-19. Although teachers are considered key workers and therefore have some priority for the vaccine, cleaners and security continue to work. The schools are closed for lockdown to help stop the spread from large gatherings of students, and it has been discussed frequently whether it is wise to reopen schools before teachers are vaccinated. It's not been considered, however, practical or top importance to vaccinate the vast numbers of students themselves, though, which brings us back to the responsibility of school caretakers and outsourced cleaning staff to reduce the risks of child-to-child spread. In almost all situations, they are the link between different sectors, industries, people, and the virus.
On a positive note, we've seen some moving tributes to these forgotten critical workers. In December, Nottingham City Council praised their cleaners and caretakers who have kept buildings safe for everyone to use. Whilst it's great to see this public acknowledgement, we do hope that this will be backed up with improved practices and new innovations implemented to keep workers safe. Bailey, you've reported on some breakthrough safety technology recently. What suggestions and examples have you seen for improved safety measures?
Thank you, Daisy. Well, we've seen a huge amount of innovation across industries to adapt. It's been hugely positive for contingency planning and encouraging for versatility, as services have been required to achieve exceptional safety standards. Technology has come into fruition and evolution to accommodate added concerns in facilities management, as we have been highlighting along the way in our COVID-19 resources section. In my article, Events Post-Pandemic, I reviewed the importance of cleaning and security staff in getting the live music sector back on its feet. Speaking about the practicalities of running his festival, agent and organiser Joe Giddings said, "We pay £1 million in policing and security for the Isle of Wight festival already. The cost for upholding new standards of hygiene and distancing would certainly be high, but so are the job opportunities for security and cleaning staff as event organisers arrange for recovery." For example, commercial eco-friendly cleaning company Priority Support Services was hired by 24 Broadcast Limited to manage the temporary structures at the virtual V Festival last year, as well as the cleaning of Highlands House. Owner and director of Priority Support Services, Tony White, explained, "One of the key elements of the job was to clean Highlands House where the production crew, celebrities and other VIPs were staying. It was critical that the right cleaning products were used, which would protect the furnishings and flooring in particular. And it was critical that the owners of the Highland estate knew exactly what was in the products being used. The in-use science products were wholeheartedly approved due to their environmental and quality credentials and the transparency of makeup of each product." With or without key and essential status, the environment for employees can and certainly should be improved by the presence of appropriate technology. The 100 Club in London is trialling a brand new installation by pathogen reduction systems to reduce transmission risk. The air filtration utility uses UVC light, which deactivates viruses and bacteria to stop them replicating. As well as COVID-19, this also inactivates other airborne pathogens. PRS hope that the technology can be used in conjunction with current procedures and the vaccine rollout to allow many venues better chances of reopening sooner, which means more contracts can be enabled again and more jobs will be made. We've also had the announcement that the Facilities Show is going to go ahead this year, and that's one of the biggest business events in the UK that has been announced for summer. It's also the world's largest dedicated facilities management event and will be run in line with the industry recognised and government approved All Secure standard to ensure attendees' safety. All Secure was piloted in September 2020 and approved by the UK government on 19th of November 2020 as a model for running large events safely. It involves several health and safety measures, including deep cleaning, social distancing on site, staggered arrival times, and of course, PPE. With so much work moving online, it's vital that experiments and testbed productions like this go ahead to lead the way in industry survival. This may incur significant development costs, of course, but also it creates new avenues for employment, products and services, and shouldn't need to come at the cost of anyone's safety and health.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have a view to share on anything we've discussed, don't forget to have your say in the comments.